Hello everybody, this is Fermentation Class's A to Z audio glossary of wine tasting terms. It'll be a little while, we have 68 terms to go through, so hang in there and it should be a lot of good fun. Alright, the first term up, starting with the letter A, is acidic. So acidic is exactly what it is. It's a noticeable sense of acidity. It's going to make your mouth water a little bit, be a little bit sour, that kind of thing. All right, so acidic. On to aftertaste. The aftertaste is the flavor and feelings and all of those things that you get after you swallow the wine, right? It's very similar to another term we'll get to in just a moment. Alcoholic. Not the person, not a state of being, just a term to describe a wine that is a little too unbalanced and has a little too much alcohol. Aroma. Aroma is exactly what it sounds like. It is the smells, it is the things that waft off your glass into your nose and give you those nice flavors that everyone people perceive as flavors, even though they're really smells. Astringent. We've talked about this one before. This is really related to an overtly tannic kind of flavor in the wine, but really it's that kind of dryness feeling on your tongue that you get from a lot of certain types of drinks and diet colas and a lot of wines, especially with lots of tannins. So astringent. All right, baked. Baked is usually a term for a wine that kind of has a little too much alcohol. It was kind of cooked and a little bit too much sun. The fruit flavors are kind of, baked a little bit. You know what I mean? Like they're maybe overexposed to heat and things like that. Balanced. So a balanced wine is something that really incorporates a lot of the major components properly and at the right levels. So this includes alcohol and the right amount of sweetness and the right amount of astringency and acidity and things like that. Big. A big wine has intense flavor. It has a lot of flavor, a lot of pop, and it can also be high in alcohol content. Body. Something that has body has a feeling in your mouth. It just feels like there's stuff there. It not really creamy, but just has some density to it, has some feeling to it when you drink it. So body has to do with the mouth feel quite a bit. Bitter. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's bitter, usually related to that perception of having tannins there. It's kind of a little higher pH, it's just bitter. Bouquet. This really just describes the whole level of layers of all kinds of smells and aroma, like a bouquet of flowers, all of the different possible types of things all kind of built up together to give it that whole bouquet. So it describes all of those smells for the most part. That's kind of what we're talking about. Buttery. Remember when we were talking about malolactic fermentation and the production of a little bit of that lactic acid feel, and the conversion of malic acid to lactic acid gives it that rich kind of creamier mouth feel, usually a buttery flavor to it. So when we hear buttery, that's what we're talking about. Chewy. I don't know if I really like this term much at all. Usually chewy has to do with an increased sense of tannins being present, but not overwhelming. Just a little bit, a little chewy. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just depends on your opinion here. So chewy. Chocolatey. What does chocolatey mean? It describes a wine that has a mouthfeel similar to chocolate. Things like a Cabernet Sauvignon and a lot of red wines might have a chocolatey feel to it. Closed. A closed wine is not very aromatic, right? So it's just kind of pretty boring, nothing too exciting, not a lot going on, it's fairly closed. Cloying. What does cloying mean? Not annoying, it's cloying. It's really a wine that has a kind of odd, sweet character to it that's not quite balanced with the acidity. Cloying is kind of annoying. Concentrated. Concentrated. What does that mean? It means exactly what it is. It sounds like something is just a little too intense. Maybe too intense, maybe not too intense, but intense. It's concentrated. Certain flavors, whatever it may be, are a bit intense. Coarse. Coarse wine tends to have a fairly rough texture to it and mouthfeel. All right. Usually this is associated as well with the level of tannins being present in the wine. Complex. Complex is a wine that has the feeling that it's kind of got a lot of layers of flavor and smells associated with it. Corked. Corked is a term describing the specific presence of cork taint, which is a compound which is related to spoiling wine, and it's a chemical compound called trichloroanisole, or TCA, which is present in the wine. Crisp. Crisp is exactly what it sounds like. It describes a wine that is kind of fresh, maybe got a little bite to it, a little acidic. That's pretty much it. Depth. A wine with depth has layers of flavor and complexity. Dirty. A dirty wine is just, I don't know. It's got a lot of funky smells to it. Smells like someone with bad body odor or stinky feet or just weird things coming out of the wine that not necessarily good during some stage of the fermentation or aging process. Earthy. Earthy describes a wine that kind of tastes like the earth, a little soily to it, a little just off, maybe the flavor of mushrooms and things like that. Extracted. A wine that is called extracted kind of has a feeling that it had a bit more contact with the grape skins than might usually happen. So it has a rougher feel to it, especially when it's younger, before it ages. Fallen over. A wine that's fallen over has just literally tanked way too early. Usually a younger wine that just went downhill rapidly for one reason or another, and it's just awful. It's just fallen over. Fat. Fat wine is full in body. Usually has a decent sense of viscosity to it. It's often referred to as flabby. Maybe it doesn't have quite enough acidity associated with it, so it's a little flabby. Fat wines. Finesse. A finesse is describing a wine that is kind of very well balanced. Finish. We mentioned this before. The finish is really the flavors and aroma and the feel that you experience right after you've swallowed the wine. The finish. A firm wine is a wine that has a significant amount of tannins in it. It's definitely a firm sense of tannins present in that wine. There we go with that word flabby again, usually describing a lack of acidity. Flat. Flat is usually describing carbonated wines like champagne, just describes a lack of carbonation present in the wine. Foxy. A foxy wine kind of has a musty odor to it. All right, so that's what's describing a foxy wine. It's a little foxy. Fresh wine. Fresh wine has usually has a good amount of acidity to it. It gives it a nice, fairly similar to crisp, a nice acidic wine in a good way. Full. A full wine gives you the feeling of a strong body in that the good mouth feel, good grape characteristics coming out in the wine. It's a very nice, complete, full wine. Grassy. A grassy wine is just, it's got a little bit of a vegetative feel to it, you know, viney kind of, grassy, fresh mowed lawn flavors coming out that are just not necessarily appealing. Maybe though, it just depends on the setting. Green. Green is usually a negative thing that's used to describe wines with these vegetative flavors and smells to them. Usually that bell pepper smell or a viney smell, or something, you know, unripe fruit kind of smell to them. Hard. Hard wine is a wine that, you know, usually has too many tannins present. So a little too many tannins are present in the wine, and it would be described as hard. So an herbal wine. An herbal wine is going to be, kind of has that sense of herbs to them, you know, a little bit of aroma of herbs and flavor, like you just kind of, maybe a little pulpery kind of thing. Hollow. A hollow wine is missing that kind of fruity feeling, I guess you could say. It's missing a sense of fruitiness to it. Hot. A hot wine is a little too alcoholic. It's got too much alcohol, a little overly alcoholic in nature, and it's just a little hot. That's usually not a great thing, you know, unless you're young or something. Jammy. Jammy is a term to describe a wine that has a very fruity flavor and aroma to it, right? Maybe a little bit less on the tannins and a lot more in the fruitiness to it. Kind of like a jam. So it's a jammy jam. Lean. A lean wine seems to be lacking of fruitiness to it. It's a little, you know, it's kind of acidic. The wine is acidic, but it's not very fruity. Leathery. A leathery wine is usually describing a wine that is high in tannins. All right, it's thick, but it might have a, you know, a more basic taste to it, so a little softer in taste, not as acidic, but high in tannins. Legs. It's got legs. A wine that has legs clings to that glass. It's a little more viscous. You can feel it in your mouth. It's got legs. When you hear a wine's got legs, it's definitely more viscous. It has more viscosity to it. Musty. Musty is pretty much, you know, that old kind of nasty attic smell or basement-y smell, a little moldy-ish coming out of the wine. So musty is describing musty. You've all kind of smelled that old basement before, and that's exactly what it's describing. Nose. So the nose is the aroma. It's that smell. It's what you're wafting off the glass into your nose. It's what's coming off of the wine. That's the nose. Oaky. So a wine that is relatively oaky kind of has that woody flavor, the tannins, maybe a sense of vanilla and other spices. Toasted flavors are coming off of an oaky, you know, from the oak barrel, so an oaky flavor. Oxidized. An oxidized wine might kind of taste like sherry, which is a bit oxidized usually. It's experienced some oxidation, and that's just a way to describe it. Petroli. A Petroli wine is going to have a hint or a sense of petroleum-based kind of flavors. Not usually a good thing. Specifically, trimethyl dihydronaphthalene is one of those chemicals that's going to be present that gives that kind of kerosene type flavor to it. Many Rieslings, this is a good thing, a Petroli type flavor. Powerful. A powerful wine has a little bit too much alcohol but not quite too much. It's kind of just high alcohol, but not excessive. Raisiny. It's exactly what it sounds like. It kind of tastes like overripe fruit, a little raisiny, like raisins. Rich. So a wine that is considered rich, it's kind of full-bodied, got a good amount of flavor to it. Just has that rich sensation to it. A little bit sweet, not too much. It's just kind of nice. Rough. A rough wine has a coarse texture to it. Again, maybe a little bit too tanniny, but not too much. Just a little bit. Maybe a little young. It's not aged very well yet. Round. A round wine has a good body to it. Not too many tannins, but enough. It's just nice and round. It's like kind of full, strong body, perfect amount of tannins, nice, well-rounded almost. Smoky. Sounds like it is. Anywhere from kind of tobacco smoke to fire smoke, or roasted toasty flavor to it. Smoky. Soft. Not too astringent, not too many tannins. It's just a wine that's just kind of not too powerful in that regard. Soft. Sour. Sour wine has a good amount of acidity to it. Might make your lips pucker a little bit. Maybe a little too much acetic acid. A little bit of bite to it. Sour. Spicy. A spicy wine has a lot of aromas and flavors. Maybe you know those little hot, little cinnamony, little peppery kind of thing to it. Some spicy notes, maybe a little oakiness to it. Spicy. Supple. Supple wine doesn't have too many tannins, but enough, but not too many. Tannic. A tannic wine has a lot of tannins in it. Pretty much it gives you that astringent, tongue-drying feeling. It definitely has a lot of tannins coming from the skins and the seeds and the stems and all those kinds of things. A lot of tannins. Tart. A little sour, a little tart, just like you'd think tart would be. Toasty. A toasty wine has a smoky sense to it, a little oaky flavor to it. Toasty. Transparency. Transparent wine has all of its flavor attributes very distinct. They're very distinct and they're not all blurred together. It's a very transparent wine, something that you can clearly note all of the key characteristics of the wine. Vanillin. Vanillin really describes the character in the wine coming from the oak barrels. It's actually from ferulic acids in the wood and in the hemicellulose of the wood. And it's just gives it kind of a vanilla flavor, subtle vanilla flavor, so vanillin. Vegetal. Vegetal flavor has that kind of vegetation type aroma to it. Maybe some floral notes, but more of a vegetation kind of thing. Vinegary. That's the last one. It really describes a not a very good characteristic. A hint of acetic acid, maybe a little too much oxygen in contact with the wine during aging, and some conversion of ethanol to acetic acid, and it's just kind of not a very good quality. All right, and so that's really our last one. And until next week, have a great time.